Imagine waking up one morning and looking up to see nothing but a clear blue sky stretching in every direction. Not a single cloud, not a wisp, just open air from horizon to horizon. That's what it would be like if, suddenly, every single cloud on Earth vanished forever. No more fluffy cumulus, no more dark storm clouds, no more high cirrus streaks. It sounds calm and peaceful at first, but the reality would be anything but. Clouds aren't just decorations in the sky. They're a key part of how the Earth works. One of their biggest jobs is regulating temperature. During the day, clouds reflect sunlight away from the planet, keeping things from getting too hot. At night, they act like a blanket, trapping heat close to the ground and stopping it from escaping into space. If you take all the clouds away, you're basically removing Earth's climate control system. Right away, we'd notice some strange things happening. Days would feel way hotter than usual. Without clouds to reflect the sun, more heat would hit the surface directly. In places that are already warm, like deserts or tropical regions near the equator, the temperatures could rise dangerously high in just the first day. Surfaces like asphalt, metal roofs, or dry soil would absorb that heat even faster, and you'd feel it the moment you stepped outside. Nights, on the other hand, would flip the other direction. With no clouds to trap heat, the warmth from the day would vanish quickly. Even places that baked in the sun all day would get surprisingly cold once the sun went down. These intense ups and downs would happen every single day, and the temperature swings would only get worse over time. Animals and plants that rely on regular day-night temperatures would be thrown into chaos. Many species have adapted to the way clouds regulate light and warmth. Without that stability, their daily patterns would break. Some might not survive the sudden shift. Human bodies, too, would struggle with these extreme swings, especially in regions where people aren't used to big temperature changes. And this is just what happens in the very beginning, too, within the first few days of clouds disappearing. It would be the start of something much bigger. Earth's weather, agriculture, and climate would all begin to unravel. Next, we'll look at how those disappearing clouds would start to mess with weather patterns, global wind systems, and the water cycle, and why that would change everything we know about life on this planet. With all the clouds gone, it wouldn't just be the days and nights that start acting strange. The entire system that moves weather around the planet would be thrown off. Clouds are deeply connected to how air moves, where storms form, and how rain falls. Without them, weather as we know it would break down fast. One of the biggest problems would be the collapse of the water cycle. Normally, water from oceans, lakes, rivers, and even plants evaporates into the air. That water vapor then gathers into clouds, which eventually release it as rain or snow. No clouds means no place for that vapor to collect, so it just lingers in the air or spreads out too thinly to do anything. That leads to massive drops in rainfall, especially in places that depend on regular storms or seasonal rains. Think about areas like the Amazon rainforest, which gets huge amounts of rain thanks to thick cloud cover and strong cycles of evaporation and condensation. With clouds gone, the rain stops. And when the rain stops, the forest begins to dry out. Over time, a rainforest could turn into dry, cracked land with dying trees, shrinking rivers, and collapsing ecosystems. The same thing would happen to farmland in places like Southeast Asia, Central Africa, or parts of the American Midwest, where crops rely heavily on cloud-fed rain. Wind systems would also go through major changes. Without clouds reflecting sunlight unevenly across Earth's surface, temperature patterns would become more extreme, and that changes how air moves. Normally, warm air rises and cool air sinks, driving the winds that help move moisture, heat, and storm systems across the globe. But now, with clouds gone, some regions would heat up way too fast while others freeze, creating weird and violent wind patterns. We'd likely see jet streams shift, storms becoming more chaotic, and some areas being permanently stuck in dry, windless heat, while others face constant gusts and sandstorms. Humidity would also behave differently. Since there would be less rain and no clouds to trap moisture near the ground, some places would feel bone dry all the time. Deserts would expand quickly, creeping into areas that used to be green and livable. On the other hand, coastal regions might get stuck with thick, sticky air full of water vapor that can't condense into rain. That strange combo, hot, heavy air and no rain, would make life incredibly uncomfortable and even dangerous for people with breathing problems or health conditions. With no reliable weather, long-term forecasting would become almost impossible. Farmers, city planners, and emergency responders would be left guessing. Droughts would hit unexpectedly. Flash floods could happen where dry soil can't absorb rare, sudden downpours. Even the seasons might stop working the way we know them, and this is still just the beginning. In the next part, we'll dig into how a cloudless world would affect our oceans, the wildlife that lives in them, and what happens to Earth's balance when the skies stay clear forever. Oceans would feel the disappearance of clouds just as much as the land would, maybe even more. Without any cloud cover, the surface of the oceans would absorb much more sunlight than normal. That would quickly cause sea surface temperatures to rise, not by a little, but by several degrees across the globe within just a few weeks. Warmer oceans change everything. Coral reefs would be among the first to suffer. Corals are very sensitive to temperature changes, and even a shift of just 1 or 2 degrees over normal can lead to coral bleaching. Without clouds to shade the water or help control the heating, entire reef systems like the Great Barrier Reef could start dying off in just a matter of months. That would destroy the homes of thousands of marine species and disrupt fishing industries that millions of people rely on. The warmer ocean water would also expand, which adds to sea level rise. Add in melting polar ice, since there are no clouds to help reflect sunlight off the white surface of glaciers, and you'd get serious coastal flooding. Cities like Miami, Bangkok, and Venice would all be at greater risk of permanent flooding within a few years, and places that already sit just above sea level, like small island nations, could be underwater faster than anyone expects. Marine animals wouldn't just deal with warmer waters, but with changes in food supply too. Phytoplankton, which are tiny plants that float near the surface and produce oxygen, need sunlight to grow, but they also need cooler, nutrient-rich water. If the surface of the ocean stays too hot, those nutrients don't rise from the deeper layers like they normally do. That causes plankton populations to crash, which then affects fish, whales, and everything else up the food chain. Storms that form over water, like tropical cyclones, would also change. While clouds are a key part of storm formation, the energy that drives storms comes from the heat in the ocean. With hotter water and broken wind patterns, new kinds of storms could develop that we've never seen before. They might be shorter but more intense, or slower and longer lasting. And since the old systems that used to push storms around are gone or broken, some areas could get hit again and again with no clear pattern. Even the chemistry of the ocean would shift. With more sunlight hitting the water and fewer processes to regulate evaporation and heat, salinity could rise in some areas, while freshwater runoff might cause imbalances in others. These shifts would confuse migration patterns for many marine animals and might lead to dead zones, parts of the ocean where nothing can survive due to lack of oxygen or extreme temperatures. And let's not forget about the poles. With no clouds to keep the temperature in check, the Arctic and Antarctic regions would melt even faster than they already are. That would not only raise sea levels, but also release large amounts of methane from permafrost, a greenhouse gas far more powerful than carbon dioxide. Once that's in the atmosphere, it speeds up the warming even more, creating a runaway effect. As we wrap up, we'll look at how these changes ripple into society, from food systems and health to daily life and global cooperation in a world where clouds never return. With every single cloud on Earth gone forever, daily life for people everywhere would start to feel completely unfamiliar. For one, energy demand would spike. Places that never needed air conditioning before, like parts of Northern Europe or coastal Canada, would suddenly be overwhelmed by heat. Buildings not designed to handle extreme temperatures would become unlivable during the day and dangerously cold at night. That's because without clouds, there's nothing to slow down heat loss after the sun sets. So, while it would be blazing hot during the day, temperatures could plummet overnight, creating massive energy swings every 24 hours. In areas that rely heavily on hydropower, like Norway or the Pacific Northwest in the United States, disappearing clouds would mean fewer storms, less snow, and eventually dried up rivers. That would hurt clean energy supplies right when people need it most. Meanwhile, solar energy would see a temporary boost with more constant sunlight, but that could be short-lived. Dust, dry air, and disrupted wind patterns might bring new problems, like massive sandstorms or haze that block sunlight anyway. Cities would also face big health problems. Without cloud cover, UV radiation would increase sharply. That means more cases of skin cancer, eye damage, and heat stroke, especially in regions that are already exposed to a lot of sun. Hospitals could become overwhelmed in just a few months as heat-related illness and dehydration cases climb. Air quality would also take a hit. With no rain clouds to help clear out pollutants from the atmosphere, smog would linger longer and hang heavier over large urban areas. Agriculture would be pushed into a full crisis mode. Farmers would have to completely rework how they grow food. Crops that depend on consistent rain or cooler temperatures, like wheat, coffee, and rice, would fail in many areas. Some places would shift to drought-resistant crops, but others might become unsuitable for farming altogether. Entire food supply chains could collapse. Countries that rely on imported food might find themselves scrambling to secure new trade deals, as everyone competes for shrinking supplies. That leads to rising food prices, increased poverty, and possibly even conflicts. Even mental health would take a hit. Believe it or not, clouds help people regulate their daily rhythm. With nothing but harsh, constant sunlight or deep, sudden darkness, people's sleep patterns would be thrown off. In some regions, people might go for weeks without a cloudy or overcast day, leading to more cases of anxiety, depression, and sleep disorders. The psychological toll of watching nature unravel, watching ecosystems collapse, wildlife vanish, and skies remain a harsh, empty blue day after day, would weigh on entire communities. Governments and international groups would likely try to respond fast. We could see a push for the large-scale geoengineering projects, like releasing particles into the upper atmosphere to reflect sunlight, or building artificial cloud systems over important agricultural zones. Some might even develop advanced systems to release moisture into the air and try to restart cloud formation artificially, though these experiments would carry major risks. If the balance of moisture, heat, and air movement is not right, these efforts could make the problem worse or shift it onto another part of the world. In the end, the disappearance of every cloud on Earth would reveal just how connected everything is. Clouds aren't just something we look at in the sky. They're part of what makes life on Earth possible. Without them, the balance falls apart. Temperature, weather, ecosystems, water, health, all of it starts to unravel. And it's a reminder that sometimes the things we barely notice, like clouds drifting by overhead, are some of the most important forces keeping our world in balance.